Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Alina Kislenko, who is a psychotherapist who is specialized in helping individuals with ADHD and Aspergers, who, ironically, she retired at 30, ran a center with a partner, and started a non-for-profit around video courses, creating an app to help people process trauma and reverse PTSD. So she's done quite a bit and then a whole bunch more. So we're going to dive into that and how she's navigated this world of entrepreneurialism and help people all along the way. So Alina, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So how did you start this journey, as it seems like it's been quite a wild ride?
Yeah, definitely. The journey, I think like most entrepreneurs, started a little bit unusually or strangely, not the typical path you'd expect. Mostly it was just, I did my undergrad degree in psychology, and I was in my undergrad for like 5.5 years because I kept changing my major and I just wasn't sure, and I felt that psychology was right. But then after my undergrad, like I just couldn't get a job, with a psychology degree in mental health, and it was really stressful. And so I started running a free support group for people with ADHD because I was just diagnosed myself at the time. And then people just got really interested. And then eventually I started taking clients, and then did my master's degree. And then eventually I was also diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome too. So I have ADHD and Asperger's, which is on the autism spectrum. And and so now we run quite a thriving counseling center where we have like psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and tutors and support groups and like everything. And this last year I kind of stepped back from it, so now it's running itself. Like I've got a lot of people managing it, and because for me I realized that I really wanted to start something and make money and whatever, but then once and like make a change in the world. But then once I was doing it with the counseling center, I was like, this isn't a big enough impact. It's just helping, let's say, people with ADD and Asperger's in my geographical area. It's not quite enough. And I really want to reach out and help everybody, like help entrepreneurs. I got really passionate about helping entrepreneurs, and very passionate about helping any vulnerable populations. So yeah, I started this not-for-profit I'm working towards teaching people how to create kind of income through the internet in areas with more poverty, and creating something sustainable where they can then teach each other, because there's a lot of places with poverty that still have the internet and have some technology there. So really helping with that. So it's kind of a long, windy story, but that's kind of my passion at the moment.
Wow, now that is powerful. You said something there. I think there probably is that misnomer out there of how people are in life. You mentioned that you were diagnosed with Asperger's. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when people hear Asperger's, oh no. And
yeah, people are like
confused.
So impressed I'm standing up like straight and like that I can talk. So Asperger's is called, it's Asperger's syndrome. It's the more quote unquote high functioning part of the autism spectrum, though that is also not a great term anymore, because like high functioning based on whose standards, But anyway, people with Asperger's tend to be the people who can still kind of get by in society. They tend to look a bit more quirky. Sometimes they have more OCD, so like kind of more perfectionism traits. 10% of people with autism have savantism or genius, like very high level genius abilities. So a lot of us are very, very intelligent with higher than average IQ. But we're just quite unusual and have some differences socially and some differences in gender norms. Like we rarely ascribe to gender norms and just have trouble in any way really trying to conform. It's not really natural for us. And I have Asperger's and ADD, so together they look a little different than someone with just Asperger's, who might look a lot more like socially awkward, and be less likely to move out of their parents' house or whatnot, or be less likely to have the entrepreneurial drive to do something versus they're people with Asperger's typically are very high level skills based, and they do best when they can pair with someone who's very entrepreneurial, and then they have like the best. And that's often a person with ADD, so then they have like a great organization basis, so an ADD and Asperger's person. But I have both of them inside of me, so I look a bit different than the average ADD or Aspie.
Oh, is that a squirrel I see?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, me and my husband, we both have ADD and Asperger's, so we created a new term that's squirrel burgers. Squirrel burgers. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. You have to love that if those little things like, oh, what we're talking about, not sure. We'll come back to it. It'll pop up in the conversation like in an hour or so.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, now I remember.
Yes, bring on the squirrel jokes. That is us. That is our people.
Oh, very nice. So it sounds like it's quite the adventure there, because I think so many people, they don't understand what it is. So once you were diagnosed with Asperger's, how did that change things for you? You're kind of like, oh, okay, or what was it?
Yeah, it was so helpful because, well, first I was just diagnosed with ADD, and I was like, okay, but like, yeah, I'm late for stuff because that's pretty common with ADD, and like have trouble with time management and procrastination or whatever. But then I was seeing all these clients that had Asperger's, so autistic traits, and I was like, oh man, but I'm so much like them too. So then I ended up going to get reassessed because I was like, I don't think this is adequate. And that's often the case, by the way, with a lot of, especially women with Asperger's. They first get diagnosed with ADHD or something else. And it could take years, if ever, for them to get diagnosed properly because it's hard to diagnose in women, and all the testing is typically done on men to determine diagnosis. So a lot of the criteria doesn't quite fit a lot of women who have it. But anyway, I felt fantastic because, well, like, so many things. Like, one, it's just so nice to be like, to know what you are, to just be like, okay, like, I walk on the ground. Okay, so I should expect, to drive cars or to live on Earth. But if I thought that I should be like flying like a bird, I would think I'm a horrible failure if I'm walking on the ground. So just like identifying yourself properly and knowing what are realistic expectations and what people like you struggle with was so empowering because it wasn't personal anymore. Like if I had an issue with something, I could be like, oh, cool. Okay, so this is probably an Asperger's element of me. So this is what I need to do to fix it, and it's not going to be as easy for me as other people, or this is how I work around it, or this is how I'm going to find people who can just accept that part of me. So that was just hugely empowering. Just really elevated my quality of life and boosted my self-esteem and my control over everything.
Oh, that's awesome, because so many people, they don't understand what's going on with them, or even think about what's the triggers for it. Like you mentioned that you have ADHD or or ADD there, and you look at how many people they go through life and they just come up with excuses for everything instead of, well, how do you deal with it? How can you be successful if you know that these are the limitations?
Yeah, exactly. Like some people worry like, okay, if there's a label, then you're just going to make excuses and be like, oh, oh no, I can't be on time. I have ADD. And that's not really the way to go. I mean, you might then, if you have ADD, then look for a job where you can set your own hours. That could be something you could do to take control. Or before you work with someone, you could say, look, I'm not great at time. So maybe always tell me to meet you, but know that I might be 10 minutes late. And can you accept that? Or just other things where you can work around it, like set a lot of timers, like so that, like, say your brothers or sisters or whatever only need to know, oh, I have to be there at 10 and then they'll be on time, but you need to know that you're going to have to set 10 alarms and that you're going to need an alarm to set the alarm to set that alarm. and like once you can adapt to it, like the world is your oyster and like you can do so much just as long as you don't think that, I guess that you can't get past these things because you're a bad person.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's interesting you say that because when it comes to calendars, and people ask me all the time, like, how do you keep yourself straight? It's simple. I put everything on my calendar. There's something I want to do, it goes there. Even if I'm traveling to some place, let's say I have a meeting somewhere, I'll put that on my calendar as an appointment. Leave for whatever. No, if it takes 40 minutes to get there, I know that I'm blocking off an hour, so I cannot screw this up.
Yeah. Amazing. So good. Do you identify a lot with the ADD traits by any chance?
Oh, not at all. Other than the fact that my mind's constantly. Otherwise, my mind is it's really just going all the time. So it's having that high level of, okay, here's the things I'm looking at. This is what I want to do, and and figure out the patterns and so forth. But to me, it's keeping things straight in my mind. So that's why like I use tools like Evernote to jot down ideas.
Oh,
It's
that's a
having
great app.
it's oh yeah, I love it. Having Google Calendar where I put things on there, so I'm not wondering what am I supposed to be doing. Oh no, it's telling me, oh, go here, do this, do that. So I don't have to think about it. It's
system. Yeah, that's amazing.
it's all about offloading things that I don't want to think about. Like, well, why should I have to remember this stuff? And I can look at a piece of technology and it tells me, go here, do this, or whatever. Now, sometimes I have to joke with my friends and say that I should probably put meal times on there because sometimes I'll go the whole day like, why am I so hungry and tired? Oh, I forgot to eat. Oops.
Right. You're just so into what you were doing. And then, yeah, so I'm similar. I actually have to set timers to eat. I mean, luckily my husband, he does like all the cooking. So he'll like remind me like, hey, I made you food, like eat this now. But like before him, yeah, I need to set timers and I would often just like go hungry way too long until I'm just too weak to make food. And then like, lots of takeout.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this food, it's going to make its way into my mouth. I'm so happy now. What is it? I don't care. It's food.
Yeah, exactly. Just like this chocolate bar will do. Moving on, back to the cool ideas. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm similar. I use OneNote for everything. I don't use Evernote, but OneNote is it's very similar. And now it's free.
Oh, yes.
It used to have a cost. And it's like I think it's the most ADD friendly way to organize yourself online. Like in terms of like how you keep all your notes and ideas, because you don't need to remember what folder you hid it in or whatever. You can just, everything is just by, do you remember one word that was in this document? And then it will show you like where that is within the document or in any documents. Anyway, it's so great. You don't have to ever find anything or lose anything.
Oh, yes, I know. And some people I will ask, like, why do you like using it? It's simple. Think of the old way of taking notes. If you go to seminars, conferences, and so forth, you're putting things in notebook after notebook, but then you're trying to remember, well, what notebook did I write that in? Crap. Versus you type in a keyword. Oh, here's my notes on that topic.
Yeah, because Evernote does exactly what OneNote does, right? You just like put
oh,
in
yes.
that word, and then you get your tags up, and you get all these cool things. Like, oh, so helpful. Yeah, and same with you, Google Calendar. I live by it. Everything has to go in it. I even actually set up a social scheduler that I use with my Google Calendar. Like I realized that, like, because with clients, I was finding like we could save so much time when we had clients schedule themselves online. So that was amazing because I hated taking phone calls, and like our receptionist had a lot of other things they could do. So we had that going on, which clients loved. But then in my life, I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm still doing so much scheduling with friends and people that like I need to see, right? So I actually created an online scheduler just like for clients, but for like my social life. And that just syncs right with my Google Calendar in this perfect way. Yeah, so I mean, Google Calendar is just amazing.
Oh, yes. It's those things you have to do because it's so easy to just be absorbed into different things and realize, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my friends in 2 months because you were just busy doing stuff.
Exactly. And with ADD and Asperger's, often we have a lot of issues maintaining friendships. So because of that, like friends just get sick of inviting us places and we never want to go, or we're always busy or procrastinating. That we can't do something because we should be doing something else, or we're not able to generate cool ideas, or we don't ask them out because we're like too shy that maybe they'll say no, or so there's a lot of issues, and also that we don't get back to emails sometimes. We're really hard to get a hold of. So I know for me the just letting my friends like, here, schedule me wherever you want on these like 2 days I allow every week to be scheduled, and then my friends are like, yeah, awesome. So then I end up seeing everyone quite regularly, which I love.
That works. This way no one has to worry about, well, how do we figure out what's going to work best? Pick these times. Do whatever you want.
Yes.
It makes it easier. So when you decided to break free from just the day-to-day helping people locally, what made you decide to do something different to teach people in, let's say, impoverished areas? How could they use the internet? Because it's something that it's different than most people in the world, because most are looking at, well, how do I just do something where I can make money?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, I worked with so many people with neurodiversity. So neurodiversity is people with ADD or Aspergers, or like just that think really outside the box, different mental differences and whatnot. Anyway, and I just saw that there's just so much knowledge, especially with ADD and Asperger's. There's a lot like very high IQ and a very high specialized brain component where like the brain is made to just soak in so much information. With autism, it's like super specialized, and with ADD, it's like more a little bit about everything. But then it's like they have all this stuff to teach, and they're so passionate about it. But then all these neurodiverse people, they didn't fit in the typical workplace, right? They'd always be either late, or they'd challenge authority, or they didn't understand how hierarchies worked in the workplace. They didn't dress right, they didn't sit right, or they didn't have the right phone manner or whatever. So there's all these blockages blocking them from becoming a really productive member of society, in that typical sense. But then they also had a lot of fears around becoming entrepreneurs, because they didn't want to fail again, like they had in a lot of other things, where they didn't have a lot of support towards becoming an entrepreneur, funding. And so I started kind of helping people. I made my own video course through this platform called Udemy, which did really well, and it was a great way to get like my message out there. And so then I started teaching a couple different clients on how to teach their own video courses. And some of them, it takes a while to do, and they need a lot of support. But generally, I just saw them light up, in the process of doing it, where they're like, oh wow, like I can just put my own content out in the world and like make money off it, and like it's just that immediate, like, and there's not that much overhead. Like all we use to film the videos is just like a phone, any camera on like any phone is usually just so good nowadays, and like a laptop or computers to do with like free video editing software, and boom, like you have a video course. You can make as many as you want. And the average video course instructor on one of the websites we use that sells the courses for you is called udemy.com. So the average course instructor there makes about $10,000 a year. So there's just a lot of great potential. And then that got me really thinking, where I was like, hey, say you're making, I don't know, $10, $15, $20 a day or whatever on a video course. Like, yeah, that's so great in North America. But imagine you're able to make that kind of money American, and you're living in Ethiopia, or you're living in India or wherever, right? Like that is the amount people will make in months, So then I was like, wait, like let's connect people to like that online market, because they can connect to it all over the place, and everybody has expertise. And so I really just wanted to create more options for a lot of people.
That's great, because it's something that people forget about. I can remember having conversations with individuals, and when they hear like, what, you're only paying like someone, let's say it was $10 a day or $20 a day in some other country, like, but that's hardly anything. I realize like that's a small fortune in that country, where they might make that normally with a week's worth of work, and they're doing it in a day. It's different. It's because they have to let go of what we consider as a norm here in North America versus a third world country where it's like, oh my gosh, they've hit it rich.
Exactly. There was this documentary on Netflix that was really inspiring to me, where these university kids went and they lived in Ecuador on $1 a day for several months, I believe it was, and just like how much they learned, and how much like and also how huge entrepreneurialism was becoming there, because like they had a place that would lend people some money to like start entrepreneurial ventures, and how it's just like hugely changing everybody's lives. And anyway, I was just like really inspired, and that was like a big part to also taking the this idea to a bigger level. I was like, wait, like, to us here in Canada, like being an entrepreneur is accessible to a lot of us. There's a lot we can do, and there's a lot, we can start our own YouTube channel, you can start our own this and that, and a lot of places there, like they don't even have their own computers, they don't have their own phone, they don't have, it's just a lot more steps for them. So for me, eventually what I'd really love to do is go into those places and set up hubs, even for places where they don't have that technology. And maybe they don't even have the internet, but set up a hub where they have the technology to just like film it, record it, and then maybe mail it somewhere even, and then they can put it online elsewhere, right? And then leave those hubs, and then they can keep teaching other people in the community to do it, so it becomes kind of more normative there.
Right. Well, if you think about it, I don't think it's an impossibility anymore. If you look at the initiatives that are being taken to bring internet access to just remote areas through various technologies, through either looking through satellite or through low-cost balloons or drones or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you look through that process, it's only a matter of time before you have internet in these places, and then people have the ability to start using low-cost devices to to jump on the internet. So you don't even have to look at, well, how do you create hubs? You just need to help people have access, period.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm really excited about internet going to more places in the world, because there's a lot of research out now that shows places that have internet become a lot less religious, a lot less conservative. So like they essentially become a lot more open to, open-mindedness, to other sexuality and orientations, to new ways of learning, to science. And it just typically elevates the quality of life in those areas. I mean, that's just something that I'm pretty excited about. And that also really expands women's and vulnerable populations' roles, right? So they don't have to be limited. So, and also I'm just really excited about people, like a lot of the reasons why factories can come into a place and treat their employees horribly and pay them so poorly is because they have a monopoly on the area, right? Like nobody else can do any, like they can't they can't go anywhere else, right? But then all of a sudden you have the internet and they have this whole world of I don't know, money-making opportunities. Like they have rights now, you know? It's almost like building in unions in a way.
Right. It's that transformation of society that people forget about, that, you know, the everyday luxuries that we look at, like, oh, you know, you think about the phone that you're using, the computers that you're on, and you don't realize that someone's producing these, and often in another country where they're being paid just pennies on the dollar, if that, to do this. Mm-hmm. And it's not simple work at all. But over time, it's one, I don't want to say it's one of those necessities, but in order for things to grow beyond it, that's where you have to look at how do you increase the level of automation so that you can remove that human component.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm so into the basic income concept, because I think soon all the jobs are going to be gone, except really, in a lot of ways, the human component, where we teach each other things or we share our personalities with others, and people will, you know, always want to learn and have a unique connection with others, and that maybe AI might not be able to do as effectively. But really, eventually, none of us are really going to be working, and I think that could either be the fall of civilization because, you know, we don't know what to do other than just make money off each other's backs, or I guess, or we become like a really enlightened society and spend all our time on like art and music and intellectual pursuits, and just like kind of allow the technology to just help us do the base minimum, that nobody has to do anything that isn't really right for them. I think that's really where humanity's going. What do you think?
I think it's along those lines, but it's a slight shift where if you think of, let's say, manufacturing as an example, over time that will be something that's completely automated, that you will not have really a human component other than overseeing the process for quality assurance, you know, looking from that standpoint. So then that lowers your cost of it. But then other areas where I think there'll be an expansion, it's like you said, there's look at the creativity of things, but then it's just going to be more of a higher level of function through society, that your basic type of things, you're not going to have people doing them anymore because there's not going to be a need for that. And we're already seeing, you know, things like that. You know, I remember last year when there were people that were upset with like fast food restaurants, like the owners who like people are picketing, like people wanted to make $15 an hour. And the owners look like, this is a business. We just can't hand this money out. So what was the response by some of these fast food companies? They created automated terminals so that way people can order their food and then someone would just deliver it to the counter. It's like, there's your solution. You want $15 an hour? They use automation to eliminate half the jobs.
Yeah, totally. And AI is going to eliminate like all the rest, really, because I mean, I have a lot of friends in AI, and even jobs like mine, I like theoretically what I was doing, where I'm a psychotherapist. They have AI that's totally being trained to eventually do that. It seems like it's pretty predictable that in 20 years, even really high-level jobs where like you really have to pick up human emotions, those might be gone too. So I mean, we're really on the precipice of a whole new world, and I think the whole concept of abusing each other and deciding that some of us are better than other ones of us is, I mean, it's going to be really old news fast when none of us are really going to be making that much money, so we can't really compare each other, at least in that way, anymore. And geographically, we can fly all over the place and get to everywhere so quickly. Nowadays, like, we're just becoming a tiny community, really, the whole world. So I don't know. I'm excited, but it's also going to be very scary, and we also may fall into a pit of doom. That may happen along the way to utopia, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I was hoping nothing like that would happen. Like, oh, look, it's bright and sunny. Hey, what's that dark object? Oh, crap. Nothing like that. Don't forget those types of things. But if you think about with the way that society is heading, the beautiful thing, if you think of the internet, of what it's accomplishing, people are now more connected than ever, where in the past there was always, you had misinformation and just the wrong ideas about people from different places. But now with being able to connect with people, you realize, oh my gosh, they're just like we are. And someone might speak a different language, but the same concerns are there. So the things that would create division in the past, those are quickly eroding.
Exactly. Well said. And I can really relate to that in that, like, so I was born in the Soviet Union before it fell, in Ukraine. And, like, my whole family immigrated when I was only 2 years old, and we were refugees. And then we brought to Canada, and and it was like a lot of years of really hard work, but it really helped me see, both frames of, like, living in a country where there was just no value on humanity, where people had no hope, where it was just a really horrible quality of life, and to this where we literally just live like kings every day, with my parents, like, reminding me all the time, like, like, this is crazy amazing, right? I think that's so much helped my perspective to, like, where to me, like, it feels like everyone's really the same. Like, we all go through the exact same experiences. We just have different social norms, because that's what we were all just taught. But at the base of everything, we're really the same.
Right, exactly. And it's becoming so much more common across the board. If you think about, say, music or fashion, and where in the past people just thought, oh, the best stuff comes from wherever. But now people are seeing, wait, that song there was written by somebody, and it doesn't really matter where they're from. Like, oh my gosh, I love that song. Because they realize there's borders. It's just something that's eroding in terms of with your whole intellectual capital that's in the world.
True. And also the more, I mean, like, in my time as a psychotherapist, I ran the counseling center for 7 years. And in my time as a psychotherapist, like, you just really learn that, like, anytime someone does something quote unquote bad, and you'd be like, oh, what's wrong with that person? They must be a bad person. Like, it always came from something else, like, just, they were treated really badly as a kid, and that's just how they learned to resolve problems, or, they didn't have the resources to learn these things, or they don't have the mental capacity to understand the problem because they haven't had a lot of that practice in their life, or whatever, right? Like, there's just no bad people. There's no differences between us other than really the genes we were given and the by chance environment we were thrown into.
Right.
I think aliens would just laugh at us if they saw what we were doing to each other. It's so ridiculous.
They're probably looking, thinking, they have this thing called reality TV, but they should be just looking outside the door because it's way more entertaining.
I know. It's so, I don't know. What do you think reality TV is all about? Why do humans love it so much?
People are looking for escapism. That's what it comes down to. They look at their own lives and realize that it's so much easier to look at someone else having the posh life, or whatever you want to call it, rather than taking a moment to look at their own lives and think, what can they do to change their own life?
Yeah, I like that, because, like, people watch reality TV and they're so full of, like, advice, like, oh man, that person was so stupid, or they should have done things like this, or what a jerk, I think it's very cathartic for people in an unhealthy way, in a lot of ways. Like, I think people who feel really stuck in their lives can look at people who have train wrecks of lives, which is really what reality TV is. It's just like they're usually coached to really ham up their problems and,
Right.
seem like a ridiculous person, so that people can project their own life frustrations. And so, like, every time, let's say, one person yells at another person, they can, like, the person watching can be all like, yeah, I wish I could say that to my boss, or I wish I could, but I wonder, like, once, I don't know, let's say if there was peace, or there wasn't, if people weren't abusing each other all the time, essentially, if those TV shows would have as much merit, to see people just be angry with each other and mean to each other and be, like, ridiculous, I wonder if we wouldn't need that catharsis. What do you think?
I think it's something that's always going to be there because people want something to distract themselves from where they are in life. Just as if you look at history, for the longest time on TV, you had soap operas that dominate the airwaves during the daytime, and they disappeared because people thought it's so scripted, so boring. Look, there's conflict and strife on reality TV. We must watch more of it. So, you had that component, but then you also had the rise of the daytime TV shows, or the talk shows, where there's like a dime a dozen now, and everybody is talking about their problems. And like, find out which of these men is your baby daddy, or something like that.
Yeah,
People love that.
You're so right. I think I've noticed a weird thing for me and my husband as we've watched TV. Like, I like reality TV sometimes, but like we've realized something weird in our TV experiences over the years as we become, like, I don't know, healthier. Like, we've done our own like therapy and become more in control of our lives, like living, like designing your own life and feeling a lot less helplessness in your life. We actually are finding TV shows that, like, where almost nothing happens to be so enjoyable. It's so weird. Like where people are just if people are being really mean to each other, we're just like, oh man, like I don't want to watch people abuse each other right now. But like, it's become much more like, there's this one TV show called Easy, if anyone's seen it on Netflix, where like they just kind of go through these scenarios where stuff happens, but there's no like huge explosions, huge suspense, huge drama. It's just like you're watching people that are unique and just cool and interesting go through their lives, and you're just like, oh, this is nice. You're just like, oh, I feel like I'm around people right now. Like, and I wonder if that's what, like, I always wonder if, like, when people are designing their life more and more, like, as people kind of get out of the box and start building a life that's right for them, if they'll see it less enjoyable to see people in pain and going through really dramatic issues. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, for me, I like stories being told on TV where it's something that it engages you on a whole different level. If it's not just watching a bunch of people, because I look at it this way: if I want to see what's happening in someone's life, and like I'll watch a group of people, I'll go to the local mall and just watch people. It's way more exciting in that fashion. Like, oh, I'm going to watch that on TV? No. Let me at least go over here, because then it's totally unscripted, so all sorts of crazy things can happen. So to me, that's more interesting.
But then, surprise. You left the surprise.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Right. I can't look up online what's going to happen in this episode.
Right.
It's whatever happened. Like, oh, look, that kid's misbehaving. Oh, this is going to be really good. What's going to happen? I don't know. But that mom looks like she's about to lose it. So there's that sense of spontaneity to it. But when you look at your different types of TV shows that are very episodic in nature and they're telling a story, well, then it gets the mind thinking, well, what's happening? For me, one of the shows I like watching Game of Thrones, mainly because the storylines that are taking place, they tend to cross several seasons. So there might be one line where, well, why did that character say that? Oh, well, because they said something similar 3 seasons ago. And that's
the continuity, so, like you're like in that world entirely, yeah.
Right, so you're seeing how things unfold. So to me, I think that's fascinating because it stimulates the creativity of the mind. Like, oh, that's fascinating. And also I look at other shows, like things like in the whole science fiction arena, where you look at of how it inspires people, and because also you look at it from another standpoint. If you look historically, the science fiction of one era in terms of, if you look at a timeline of things, tends to become more of a reality later that inspires people. So to me, I look at it as very inspirational. If you think of, let's say, here's a great example. Look at writings by Jules Verne in terms of sending people to the moon. What happened, less than 100 years later? Ta-da, you have people on the moon. Because of this notion where it plants a seed, how can you make things happen? And you look at, I remember years ago watching it was an interview about Star Trek, and they were talking to James Doohan, who's played Scotty, and of all the different conventions, there were people, countless individuals that came up to him, and they told him that because of that show, seeing what he was doing, that inspired them to become engineers.
Ooh, great. Wow. So
you see those types of things. So to me, I think that's fascinating of how you can use things to inspire a generation from that standpoint.
Right. And maybe like try on different lives, like try on different lives, different technology that we could then develop. Yeah, that's a really cool perspective. I hadn't thought of that. I like that.
Right. So, it's some of those things you look like, wow, it's things, they become a reality, such as if you think about just using Star Trek, that brought that up, of being able to scan people's vital signs. Look at what we have now in terms of technology with wearable devices that do just that.
Yeah, and actually my whole view like that I'd mentioned before that I think like we're moving towards a utopia comes from a lot of science fiction that I've read or like I think when I was growing up where it was just like wait the first steps are like you know we have technology that replaces a lot of these jobs and then the world reorganizes itself you know and then it can go well you know and that we can move into kind of a whole new time you know or learning about other alien societies if you look at them in a lot of the TVs and movies like if they're like living in peace they're very rarely do they work you know they're very like they're so technologically advanced that everything's kind of available to them and I got so excited when 3D printers were invented and started becoming more mainstream. I was like oh my god it's just like the Star Trek what do you call it the thing that makes all the other stuff I'm not good at.
Oh, the replicators.
The replicators. Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, we're on our way. Let's go explore the skies. You know.
Right, and if you think of the world of entrepreneurism with having 3D printers, of what that's doing, you know, you see people coming up with very creative ways of solving problems. I watched a video maybe a year ago, and it was showing a home being produced using a 3D printer.
Wow.
So if you think about of lowering the cost of things, of being able to build affordable housing, we'll use a printer to do this. So now it makes it affordable to the masses, where in third world countries, they might not be able to afford a nice home, but well, now because of this, you've dramatically reduced it. So it does become a reality. So if you look at things along those lines, or of being able to create replacement parts, I mean, the list goes on and on. I remember in terms of a real interesting one, there was, I don't remember all the exact details of it, but there was a kid who he wanted to have braces, I think, or was it Invisalign, one of these things to basically straighten his teeth, but he couldn't afford the amount of money it was going to cost, so he became really ingenious. So he essentially created a mold of his teeth and then figure out how would they have to look to adjust accordingly, then use a 3D printer to actually print off the devices he needed.
Yeah, that's insane. And I know like this year, I think there's the first head transplant being done in Russia. Yeah, like
oh, yes.
I personally, I'm very excited to become an android. I would like, I think the human experience with like our sticky, smelly bodies, and just like all we have to do with feeding and caring for them, like it's like there's us and then there's our pet, which is like our body that we have to like constantly exercise and do things with, and it's exhausting, and like we never consented to have this pet, you know. So I'm really excited to get like my brain maybe stuck into some sort of like shell. And I think a lot of people with autism actually might agree with this, because something kind of funny with autism is a lot of us have sensory issues. So sensory issues are like, there's certain environmental triggers are just way too overwhelming for us. Like the sense of smell, that's for me, it's like my sense of smell, and certain elements of touch, like things hurt me way easier than for other people, or tickle me easier, or like just make me itchy and uncomfortable. Like I just like so much of my childhood is like just a bunch of itchy socks and like uncomfortable outfits and like smelly adult breath trying to like teach me stuff. So I mean, for a lot of us, it's like if we could just turn on and off those sensory experiences, just like where we're not itchy or in pain or uncomfortable whenever we don't want to be. I think I would definitely go for that. I think that'd be amazing. How about you?
Well, you see, that's the beautiful thing. If you look at the world of entrepreneurism, you can be able to control the world that you live in. So to me, that's why I think if like, oh, I don't like certain sensations, I eliminate them. I don't want them around.
Yeah.
So to me, it does make sense. So like some of my friends give me a hard time saying, all you wear for the most part are black T-shirts. Do you own any others? Yes. How come you don't wear them? I don't want to.
Very Zuckerberg of you.
Yeah, right? Like it's simple. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to make the decision. It's simple. I wear a T-shirt. It's done. I don't have to worry about it. And like jeans, like I have like a few pairs. Like, why don't you want more? Why? They're jeans.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. And so is Obama. I mean, actually, that's a big hack for a lot of very successful people. They really bring down their wardrobe to just be really efficient, so they don't have to think very hard every day about it. There's already so many tiny choices we have to make every day as entrepreneurs. You know, you just want to automate as much as you can, like when things happen, what you're going to wear. And if you just have a bunch of stuff that matches itself, and you never really have to be very creative thinking about colors and all sorts of other stuff, then like amazing. I mean, but then you don't get to express yourself. So pros and cons, but does it work for you?
Oh yes, well, and think about expressing myself like you. there's so many other ways that you can do that. It's not limited to, oh no, I must wear something extremely fashionable. Yeah, okay. Considering I work from home, 90% of the day, I'm not going to be in front of another human being except when I go to the gym. So it doesn't really matter.
It's so true. I love that in so many, like I create a lot of video courses and YouTube videos and all sorts of things all the time. And I just love that I like literally have to get like a sweatshirt or like figure out something that looks whatever, okay on top. And then just, pajamas, whatever, just like wherever you are, like you don't even have to think about it. So as an entrepreneur, yeah, it really decreases your need to go shopping as much and to really worry about those things. But then I have an entrepreneur friend who's like, any chance she gets to like get dressed up and go anywhere, she's like frothing to do it, because like just foaming at the bit, because she just hates being in her pajamas all day. She wants some reason to not do it. So I can't relate to that, but I know people feel that way apparently.
Oh yes, and that's part of it. You're designing your life so you can do the things that you want to do. Like just like you're creating those video courses. I have lots of friends that create videos, and sometimes I wonder how come the videos are always like from the waist up. It's because they're wearing shorts or pajamas.
Wear pants or any kind
Right.
of respectable bottom bits. That's right. They're like, that's just too much work. Yeah.
That's what always happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it as it's just a simple way to keep life easy. You design your business the way you want to run it, and which is ultimately what you want to have happen. Like, why create yourself a job? If you want to do that, go work for somebody else, and it's a less headache.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it takes a lot of work to create a life that's perfectly right for you. You have to be willing to do it. But I love the life hack stuff. I got really into it when I was like 19. And and started reading Timothy Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and just a bunch of other stuff on like designing your life and designing your lifestyle. And first of all, it definitely became apparent that like becoming an entrepreneur was a really big part of that, if you could do that.
Right.
But yeah, so many little life hacks that just saved, like that now I just do. I don't even think about like that they're just part of my existence, and I just hear of people who aren't doing them, and they're not really applying any hacks to their life. They're just living how they're quote unquote supposed to, and they're so exhausted all the time. They think they have to do everything perfectly.
Right. So what's one of your favorite life hacks?
Ooh, there's so many fun ones. Let's think. Well, okay, this one I don't know if it'd be considered a hack, but definitely me and my husband, one of the first things we discussed when we were moving in together, we were like, okay, so we're gonna have a cleaning lady. Like, he's a bit cleaner than I am, but both of us don't really like tidying up at all. So we're like, but we both like being in a clean place. So we're like, we're gonna need a cleaning person. That's a big one. Another one for me is, I already mentioned this show, is my social scheduler. So the one that like where my friends can schedule me and do that kind of thing. So I don't have to worry about that. And whenever a friend doesn't want to schedule me on through the scheduler, like they're technophobic or something, then I pass them along to Matt, my husband, who likes scheduling people. So he does that. Like, so I outsource it to him, and he outsources bits of his life to me. So that's been huge, like as a life hack, really figure out like what are our strengths and weaknesses, as a team, and really doing a lot of things for each other that the other one is just not as good at, and one of the partners is very reliable at. Those are really helpful for me. What about you?
Oh, for me, one of my favorite ones, it's actually with my diet, because I pay attention to all the foods that I'm eating so I can maintain a certain level of energy throughout the day. Since so many people, they eat junk food and all sorts of garbage, but then they have these peaks and valleys. At one point, they're bouncing off the walls. The next thing, they're wanting to crawl under a couch to take a nap because they're just that exhausted. So to me, I look at it as, well, here's the foods that I'm going to consume throughout the day. So I look at food as an energy source, not as a form of entertainment. So because of that, I have tons of energy to do the things I want to do from the time I wake up to the time I really should probably go to bed late at night, which is often like midnight, 1 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so to me, I think it's the most powerful one, because you can make so much more happen when you give your body the nutrients it needs. And then I just have to make sure I remember to do it throughout the day. That's the other part.
Yeah, and what helps you do that?
Using a calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Having alarms go off like, oh, it reminds us to eat. Like, another thing I like to do is throughout the day I'll wear an Apple Watch, because then I have a reminder set to go off every single hour to remind me to get up and move around.
Nice. Yeah, I used to have that I had a Fitbit that would vibrate. You set it for like a time, mine was like 40 minutes, and it would then vibrate to be like, you've been sitting on your butt too long. Like, it knows if you move or don't move. I found that so helpful. I'm not wearing it anymore because it started like kind of irritating my wrist when I was sleeping, and then anytime I take something off, I've really forgotten it forever. So I don't know where it is right now, but so helpful.
You see, that's what I love about the Apple Watch or just all the Apple products. So in case, like, because there's been times I'll put it like, oh crap, where is, like, oh, let me use that little Find My iPhone app.
Yay.
And oh, there it is.
That's awesome. I think that needs to be on every single product. I've heard of this cool thing called Tile, or there's like these little things that you can put on anything like glasses or your cell phone or your laptop, and then it'll just track it for you, like on your GPS, or if it's in your space, like it'll just tell you like it's right over there. I think that's a huge lifesaver for a lot of ADDers, so I'm excited for them to be more regularly available. So that's really cool that the Apple phone already does that, like, for you. That's really cool.
Oh, yes. I tell people all the time, like, if I have to always pay attention to where I put down something, because if I'm distracted, I will have zero memory of where it's at.
Yeah.
So people would like, but how does that work? Like, I don't know. It's just the way it is. Like, I've gotten used to it. Watch where I put things down. Otherwise, I will look around for hours. Like, crap, where is it? And it could literally almost be right in front of me. But because I have no memory of putting it there, I will not find it.
Yes, exactly. And we've actually realized that Matt is so much better than I am at finding stuff. So like usually I stay up like a long time, and then by the time I'm ready to sleep, like I just need to sleep immediately. Like I have very little ability to like find my phone and plug it in. But then if I don't plug in my phone every day, like it needs to be that habit every day, or I have an uncharged phone and then I can't access my calendar and then my world explodes. So we found like it's so great that we've been able to outsource it that I'm like, can you find my phone? I'm going to be unconscious now. Please set a timer for this time. And he's like, done. Thank you. So actually one of my biggest life hacks is Matt, and I'm one of his biggest life hacks because he doesn't really like entrepreneurial stuff and I do all that and then he does. So it's been so good.
That is awesome. So as we begin wrapping up things today, what's one thing you recommend for people to create success as an entrepreneur?
There's so many things, but like really finding a partner that like, first of all, fully accepts your really weird brain, and loves you for it, not despite those things. Like they appreciate those things, they understand that they're part of who you are, as well as that you really work hard to figure out where are each of your strengths and weaknesses, where can you outsource things to each other, and how to completely avoid resentment ever, because that screws up everything. So we do like a lot of couples counseling, like just we did ourselves, and really recommend for every relationship, especially if you have neurodiversity or if you're an entrepreneur, you're a pretty weird person. So like I really recommend go to couples counseling if you have a partner, to really make you a perfect team, because those perfect teams are so much more effective than just one person by themselves. And if you don't have a partner, approach it. Like if you're going to find a partner, approach it as if you're finding the person to be like CEO of your company or your co-founder or something. Like take it really seriously. Put them through a lot of tests. Make them meet your family and friends. Figure out everything that's wrong with them as soon as possible. Stress test them. Because people just kind of choose their partner based on like, oh, you give me squishy physiological sensations, rather than are you going to build my entire life and possibly the family we make or the business we make or every aspect of my life. Like, are you good enough for that? So it's a weird bit of entrepreneurial advice, but I've seen so many partners ruin things for the entrepreneurial venture, really.
And that's awesome. It's so important that you have that, because if you don't have the support at home, it doesn't really matter how much you're focused on making things happen, it's going to fall apart.
Exactly. And this is for anyone. Like, you don't have to be monogamous. You could be polyamorous. And still, it's really important to find the right people in your life, friends, family, everyone, that really supports you and it feeds you what your brain needs. It's huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how can people reach out to you, learn more about what you do and so on?
Oh, thank you for asking. I have a website. It's ADHDinterrupted.com. That's ADHDinterrupted.com. And I'm also on Facebook under that same ADHD Interrupted, and Twitter. And we've got like lots of video courses out there and lots of free content and things we're always putting out there for entrepreneurialism, because that's my passion, but also around ADD and Asperger's. So yeah, lots to learn if you have any questions.
That's awesome, Alina. Well, thank you once again for coming to the podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom about so many things.
Thanks so much for having me. It was super fun.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.